Well, welcome to Consumer Talk and welcome back to studio to consumer journalist Wendy Knowler, who is with us for this second hour of the show today, and a very important and quite serious conversation because we are talking about the issue of signing contracts before you are fully old enough, shall we say, to understand them and their consequences, and particularly the risk of teenagers doing so with gym and cell phone contracts. Now, if you've had experience with this issue, if you'd like to share it with us or ask a question or join the conversation, you are very welcome to either call in on 021 446 0567 or you can send a voice note to 072 567 1567. Welcome back, Wendy.
Thank you, Pippa. Good to be here.
It's important to know up front that South Africa's laws around who is regarded as an adult with full adult competency actually changed in 2007.
Yeah, so until then, and I was working as a consumer journalist then, it was, 21 was the age of majority for everything. I remember my sister wanting to go skydiving when she was 19, and my parents had to sign consent, and they did it with long teeth, but, she did. That was the thing. If you were to get married under 21, same thing. Anything that was legally binding, you couldn't do it until you were 21 without your parents' permission or some kind of intervention.
Yeah.
But now, there were political reasons why that happened, which you won't go into here, but it created the situation where you have people in school uniform being driven around by mommy and daddy. Well, I suppose they can get their driver's license at 18. But yes, being fully fledged adults with all the rights and responsibilities that come with that. And usually my inbox tells me the two contracts which catch them are, and it makes sense given their life stage, a cell phone contract and a gym contract.
Okay,
and it's usually the mommies who write to me to say, I can't believe that this happened. It's not fair.
So again, since 2007, 18 is the age of majority, and when you sign a contract as an 18-year-old, it is fully legally binding, as if you were an 88-year-old.
Completely.
Okay. So, Wendy, I know you chat to school groups from time to time. Is this something you've actually addressed with particularly the older grades in high school?
Yes. So sometimes, often, I've asked by teachers who teach consumer studies in particular as a matric subject. So I'll be just the matrics or the grades 11s as well. And just, basic consumer rights, that kind of thing, my experience. And I've been horrified. The curriculum doesn't do a deep dive into the Consumer Protection Act or the National Credit Act or anything like that. It is very broad brushstroke stuff, such as you have a right to, transparent marketing and goods that are safe and blah, 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 blah. But there's nothing that would even prepare them in a relatable way for contracts, for example, saying, now, if you go out and take a cell phone contract or a gym contract, for example, that would engage them because they're kind of in that space. These are your rights. You must know this. These are the questions you must ask. Nothing like that. And so I've done these talks and I've said, do you know this? Do you know? No, nothing.
They just don't know. Okay. So that leads us to, I know, Wendy, you feel quite strongly that not only it should be in the curriculum, but that companies themselves should be mindful of operating in this particular space of the sort of the newly minted adults.
The newly minted ones, I like that. Yes. But of course, a lot of what happens in this contractual situation, Pippa, in face-to-face we're talking about, let's say, in a gym contract situation. Either it's direct marketing and they're approached in a street, in a mall, they'll set up a table. We've all seen that. Or they decide, I want to go and I want to join a gym. I want to turn up for somewhere, whatever the case may be, and investigate off their own bat. It's verbal, right? What they say, and I'm not saying that every person who is a sales agent for a gym is going to be guilty of this, but it happens, and I've investigated enough cases to know it happens when you can't have all these people saying the same thing, making the same allegation. So it's mainly around, can I just gym for a month, or can I just gym, or it'll be free training for a week, or you've got 3 visits, and they think, fantastic, who wouldn't? Just sign this paper, and they sign just to say that I can, just to prove that told you about this, for example, and just give us some bank details just in case if you stay on. And people, they're young and naive, and they do it. Meanwhile, what they're signing for is a year or a 2-year contract in some cases. I've had many of these cases. And there's never any proof of what the salesperson said, right? There's no recording. And I'm saying to young people who use their phones for everything, normalize this. Start recording. You can video it. You can do a sound recording. That is your evidence. That is your proof. And don't feel bad for doing it.
You're legally entitled to do it.
And if they don't want you to do it, then maybe you should realize that you've dodged a bullet there and keep on going. So I get these cases, and the sort of case study that we have today is one of those where the parent's saying he said he just wanted to gym for the month, but, and it turned out
it was more than that, yeah.
Yes, and then how do you contest that? How can I go as an independent third party and say, this is what you said? They're going to say, well,
we didn't say that.
The agent is adamant that they didn't say that. There must have been a misunderstanding. It is very, very difficult, and that is why we, as the parent community, can't, rely on the schools or anyone else to tell them how it works out there with contracts. We have to do it for them. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but as we know from some work we normally do, that most adults don't know how these contracts work.
So I just want to say, as an aside, on the subject of recording it, because I know the question is about to come in, you are allowed, if you are party to a conversation, you are allowed to record it in South African law, and you are allowed to do so whether or not the other party knows about it or not. You're perfectly entitled to say, I'm just going to record our conversation.
Absolutely.
You don't have to, though. You can just hit record on your phone and make sure that you are capturing what you are discussing, as long as you are a party to the conversation.
Yes.
You can't do it for a third party conversation for the record, but you are legally allowed to do it. Wendy, okay, and so if you take nothing else away from this conversation today, parents of teenagers who are approaching adulthood, please take away the necessity of having a conversation with your children as to say, please know that when you turn 18, you are legally viewed as an adult. What you sign your name to is legally binding, and those are the consequences you will face.
Or agree to something over the phone, because that's a huge
one as well. Okay.
Yeah.
But let's just set the scene here of why we're talking about this specifically today. The conversation is prompted by a post I saw on Facebook a week or so ago. And it was, as Wendy said, it was a parent expressing huge concern over a teenager who had signed a gym contract. And what had happened is this 19-year-old thought they had signed up for a single month at Virgin Active. He said, I'm home for the holidays. I just want to use it while I'm home for the holidays before I go back to varsity. And so he duly signed the documents thinking he was signing up for a single month membership. What he had actually signed up for was a full gym membership. And he is now being hit with demands for months and months of outstanding fees, which he can't pay because he is an unemployed student. So the two prospects on the table here are, one, that this young man goes into adult life blacklisted with a bad credit record for not having paid. Or, of course, option two, mom and dad are asked to cough up for the balance that is due.
Because, the downside, the credit record is just not about not being able to take out any credit, but these things are accessed by potential employers as well. So you can't leave, if you've got means, you're not going to let your child suffer that.
Exactly. So a lot of parents would step in. But what was interesting, Wendy, I mean, looking at the responses where that story was shared on social media, there were quite divergent responses from other people. There were a lot of Me Too stories from people saying this happened to my child as well. There were some saying this is a good learning opportunity for your child. Tough love. Learn to deal with the consequences of your actions. There were others obviously saying, shame, it's not their fault. You must help them if you can. The gym needs to be taken to task, etc. But the sheer number of Me Too cases was quite stunning to me.
Yes.
Now, obviously, as you've already referenced, Wendy, this is something you've encountered before.
Absolutely. And it's true, as I said, that many young adults have indeed been misled into signing long-term gym contracts under the guise of a free trial, or yes, of course, you just do a month, it's fine, and then they find themselves committed long-term. And the problem, as I've said, is there's no proof. And I think, the agents, anytime you're dealing with an agent who is going to make a commission out of a sale,
yep.
I'm sorry, but that system does lend itself to if the agent knows that, assumes that the conversation is not being recorded. If I'm talking about face-to-face now, and gets a sense that, this is a young person with very wet behind the ears when it comes to contracting, and
there's an opportunity here.
Is an opportunity, and there's also very little chance that they're actually going to wade through the small print.
Yeah,
I think that in itself is a lesson that we have to give to our children approaching 18, just how important that is. It will save themselves so much drama, emotional and financial, going forward as adults, if they just get into the habit of doing that. Unfortunately, in most cases, their parents have never got into that habit, or I wouldn't have much work.
Yeah,
many cases on
in
my
your
hands.
desk. Yeah. Okay, so Wendy, as we said, this was a case born out of social media. Wendy did actually reach out to the person who posted the story to say, can I help? I would like to go to the gym and try and intervene, but they didn't take up that offer. You did, however, go to Virgin Active in the interim to just ask a couple of questions.
I did. I got hold of Virgin Active's head of customer service, Jackie Walter, who I've dealt with many times. She said that she also reached out on that platform and said, you're welcome to contact us, and also hadn't heard.
Okay.
But I asked, does the gym have a product which allows someone to commit to a membership for just a month or just 3 months? And she said, yes, they do have short-term membership options, but they are priced much higher. And so this is the thing with gyms, is they will always try and upsell you to the longer period because of the fact that it's cheaper per month. But it's only cheaper per month if you go the distance
and use the whole contract,
which very few people expect. People who are established gym goers, that is part of their life, and it's very much their habit. But for newbies or lapsed ones who are now trying it again, and looking at the general gym population, a very, very low percentage of them actually go the distance, which means they can sign up many, many more people than will ever rock up and use their facilities. So it's the people that sign up and don't go actually who fund the gyms.
The maintenance of the gyms, yes.
Yeah.
And that is, that's feedback we've had from people working in the industry, that it's hugely oversubscribed in terms of memberships that sold, because they know full well that a large majority of the people who buy those long-term memberships are not going to keep coming and still be coming in year 3. So that's the way the pricing works, Wendy. So it's cheaper.
They will discourage you, but it's
for a longer one.
Yeah, but it's, as I say, only if you go the distance. So for most people, I say, if you knew or you lapsed, go for the shortest period possible. Don't be swayed by it's the most expensive. If you sign this contract, you'll only pay whatever a month. Because as we'll get to later, when you want to cancel, which you most likely will, that's just statistics, you will be in for a very large cancellation penalty if you've got a long period left that you don't intend to fulfill.
Okay. So the pricing in this case, it's not hugely relevant. It's the principle rather than the actual pricing. But as you've said, they load the short-term products to be more expensive. There are, generally speaking, at most gyms, discounted options available for youths and for students and the like that are a little bit cheaper. But the same principle applies, that a 3-month contract will be more expensive per month than a 24-month contract. Wendy, so to that point, so the salespeople know all of this. They know it's in their best interests to get the longest possible contract signed because they'll get the highest commission on that. Are they instructed at all? Is there any obligation on them to be mindful of the kind of customer they are dealing with, especially if it is a younger person, somebody who's just turned 18, who, 20 years ago would have required their parents' permission to make a decision like this? So is there any onus on them to take special care?
I think so. I think it might not be a legal obligation, but there's certainly a moral and an ethical obligation on their part to do it. So I asked that question of Virgin Active, and Jackie Walter said, our consultants are trained to provide recommendations based on each individual's circumstances, including their financial situation and lifestyle needs. In the case of young adults, especially those transitioning from the family membership, our team typically engages with the parent or guardian to discuss the next appropriate option. Should a young adult approach us directly, which is what happened in this case, We focus on transparency and suitability rather than upselling. Our aim is to match them with a membership that is both affordable and aligned with their needs.
Okay.
So that's the official line.
That's the official line.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about cancellation penalties after the eyewitness news, but some very interesting comments coming through here from some of our listeners and some very good advice as well. Juno saying, I always advise when in conversation with sales consultants, either on the phone or even face-to-face, ask them to send an email with regard to the conversation confirming what was discussed before agreeing to sign up for anything. That's great in principle, but they're not always prepared to do it. I've had the same ongoing fight with my cell phone provider for the last 2 years because every month they phone me to say, you're due for an upgrade. This is what we can offer you. And I say, put it in writing in an email. And they say, we can't do that.
I have another bit of advice around that.
Yeah.
Certainly with the gym situation, as Juno is advising, I say to people, if you're having a verbal engagement, and they're not willing to do it or they're not doing it, you send an email to them saying, just recording what we agreed to. You said this, I agreed to that, blah, 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 blah. And if they don't counter it by saying that's actually not the agreement, and this is, then you know, you
are protected.
Yeah, so that's more in the case of after the contract, when things start going wrong, or when they promise this is how they're going to remedy it or whatever. Any situation, even if it's a landlord and tenant, they're promising, tell you verbally they're going to fix the mold in the bathroom and nothing's happening. You start creating your own evidence by saying, we met on this day and you verbally said this, I'm now creating a record. And if they don't counter it, then that's the record.
Okay.
But yeah, in terms of that advice is good. Before you get to the point of signing the contract, say, But the contract then is the verbal thing. Do you know what I'm saying? They talking, and then they say, right, you say, yes, that sounds nice. And they say, okay, here's the contract.
Here's the contract, which reflects what we've just said.
My point is, if they've said something that's really nice and it's not in the contract, make them put it there and sign it. And if they won't, then you know it doesn't exist. Only what's written and captured in that contract that you now asked to sign does it count in law. Anything they tell you, unfortunately, pinch of salt. And that's the main thing we need to tell our youngsters.
Yeah.
Because they don't know this.
Lots of responses coming through, including one from Anonymous saying it's not only teenagers it happens to. I'm 82 and was a victim of this kind of thing at Virgin Active Point. I'm so sorry that you had that experience. Yeah, another person, FM, sending a WhatsApp saying, at my current gym, you can invite a friend to come and gym with you. The catch is they have to see a sales representative before their gym. And I can see kids easily signing or agreeing to things verbally just to get through the process and get into the gym.
And not wanting to get in quickly and not reading.
Yeah, and not reading the fine print.
That's a huge danger point.
There's also a voice note that's come through on 072 567 1567. Can we take a listen to that?
Sorry, but I found the whole sales, especially in gym membership, manipulating and deceptive. You know, we need to call it as it is. Most people don't read the small print. It's what you're trusting the salesperson to tell you the truth and to give you the overall picture. So I just find it all wrong. I just say no immediately to any sales.
On Wendy's, after many years of doing the show with Wendy, I will never again agree to any kind of contract conducted over the phone. Wendy, ever,
Mission
as long as I
accomplished.
live. And I hope others have made the same sort of decision. And, you know, what you're saying, it's awful. And I say this with all due respect to some of the very lovely salespeople who work in this building, that not every salesperson is deliberately deceitful and out to get you, but many of them are, and you've just got to be mindful of that and get everything in writing before you commit. Wendy, let's circle back to this issue of cancellation penalties, because this is where it really kicks in and bites you, that you might just think, oh, well, if I change my mind, I can cancel the contract and get out of it. It's not as easy as that.
No. So there is a cooling off period of 5 days, but that is only in the case of you responding to a direct marketing approach. So you're walking along in a mall and there's these, you know, gym representatives with a table and they invite you over, come and chat. They approached you directly. If you agree and sign up and then you get home and you think, what was I thinking? Can't really afford this, or I know I'm not going to go, or whatever the case may be, you can then go in and cancel. Right? You have five working days, so effectively a week in which to do that. But in this case, this young 19-year-old walked into the gym and initiated the process. So he would have had no cooling off period there. So it depends. If you initiated, there's no out of a cooling off period.
Okay, that's important to know. Yeah.
If, let's say you signed up for typically 2 or 3 years, because they'll tell you it's cheaper. 1 year is super expensive. You must really rather do this, whatever. And you either feel intimidated by the whole gym culture, or you get injured, or you move, or you want to cancel.
Yeah.
Then it becomes a case of the cancellation kicks in, because now you are breaking the contract, the 24-month or the 36-month contract or the 12-month contract. And so the CPA entitles you to cancel with a month's notice. You still got to give a month's notice. It only becomes effective 30 days later. But the service provider, be it a gym or a cell phone company or your private security company, has the right to impose a reasonable cancellation penalty. And reasonable is only guided by what the norm is in the industry. So
it's not defined that
it's not defined in the Act.
10% is reasonable
No.
at month X and 20% at month Y. That's not delineated.
It's in Virgin Active's case, it's 40% of remaining subscriptions for the remainder of the term. So if you signed 24-month contract and after 6 months you want to cancel, you've got to pay 40% of the remaining 18 months, which is quite hefty.
It's hefty, yeah.
What did I tell you about the no-shows, the cancellers actually funding a lot of the gym's operations? That this is how it works. So always look for the cancellation clause before you sign anywhere, no matter how attractive the going-in offer is, because the chances of you wanting to cancel early are very high unless you're an established gym goer, as I keep saying. I've had cases, and it's quite common, where some gyms will the cancellation penalty is 70 or even 80% of remaining subscriptions. Now you've got a very big problem, because legally they can do it, and if you don't pay, you get blacklisted, and the rest of your financial story goes south.
It's compromised.
Yeah.
Okay. So hugely important to be aware of the cancellation clauses in a contract. What about the issue of due diligence around affordability? Wendy, I know our National Credit Act requires certain steps of anybody who lends money, for example, to check that the person taking out is able to repay. Is there any kind of onus or requirement on salespeople for a gym contract or a cell phone contract, for example, to check that the person signing the contract can afford it?
Well, this is the thing. This is a very important part of the story and why it's so dangerous. I asked this exact question, and I said, look, legally the person's over 18, 19, whatever. They're a student. Do you feel that you need to involve the parents, because they're clearly going to be paying for it? Or I suppose they could have a side job, but most likely the parents are going to be paying for it. And Virgin Active's response was, we do not conduct formal affordability checks like those in financial services, but we do encourage full transparency during the sales conversation. When a parent is known to be paying, we make every effort to involve them in the discussion, even though the young adult may be legally permitted to enter into the contract independently. Our aim is always to foster a responsible and informed decision-making process, particularly for our younger member. But we have to ask the question, is that happening in practice? And who's monitoring that?
Because it doesn't appear it happened in this case.
In this particular case, it clearly did not happen.
Okay. So please have this conversation with your youngsters. Make sure that they are aware of the fact that when they turn 18, they are regarded legally as an adult, and they are legally bound to any contract that they sign, any financial commitment they commit themselves to will be binding, and that it is not as easy as saying, I've changed my mind, I want to cancel, with no consequences. Wendy, what else would you like listeners to know about gym memberships in particular?
Okay, I've already mentioned this, the fact that when you sign up, they know pretty well that statistically you have more chance of cancelling before the end of your period that you're signing up for than not, and that you're still going to have to be paying for that, if not paying all along, then in one lump sum as a cancellation penalty. There was a well-known businessman in Johannesburg, Koshik Karan, otherwise known as the finance guy, in January when the gyms were in sales overdrive, post-Christmas shape-up sort of thing. He posted this on X. Gyms make most money from folks who don't work out. I spoke to the owner of a national gym. They are 5 times over capacity. Their data shows less than 20% of people signed up actually use the gym. Making money from a lack of discipline is excellent business. The gym industry has a term for the high failure rate, drop-off feb. 50 to 60% of new gym goers won't regularly attend the gym just 6 weeks after joining.
Wow.
This means you can pump out far more memberships than you can actually accommodate. It's an infinite money glitch. So, that's an example. What was it? That's an important stat. Less than 20% of people sign up actually use the gym. So that's, he doesn't name the gym. He says they're 5 times over capacity. So my point is, not to discourage you from joining a gym because it's real, active, healthy, and all of that. Yeah. But sign the shortest possible contract because that's actually the cheapest, because the chances of you going the distance are very small, and statistically, I have to say. And so don't fall for the line that, it's super expensive. Look how much you're paying per month. But if you sign up for 2 years or 3 years, this is what it's going to cost you per month. That is, it's true, but it's disingenuous given what they know about the drop-off.
It's not disclosing the whole story.
No, it's actually in your favor. In most cases, statistically, to go for the shortest possible contract period. And then if you prove yourself, then, of course, when that year is up, or the 6 months, or the shortest you can get, then, okay,
commit to the longer one.
Let's commit to the longer one. But to go in fresh or lapsed for some time is... You're just making money for the gym.
I do like Gary's comment. He says, my friend has a great idea for a new model for gym memberships. You only pay for the days that you don't go. He's going to make a fortune. Is his comment. He will indeed. Steve asking, why don't gyms have a pay-as-you-go option?
Because
they wouldn't make any money, Steve, for this exact reason.
Somebody's got to pay for all that lovely equipment and rental and everything else.
Wendy, the other thing is around the gym that doesn't yet exist, that only exists on paper or in a semi-built perspective.
I have a lot of complaints like that, so they obviously give you these fantastic offers that come in. Sometimes it's part of an existing group that has a national platform, and so there's a trust factor, and they open up in your neighborhood. They'll go to the mall near where it's going to open, or near where it's going to open, and they sign people up, and then for whatever reason, I'm not saying it's deliberate. In fact, I think it's not deliberate, but there's a problem with the leasing, with the rental, with the whatever, and it doesn't happen, and then it's a real battle to get your money back. So wait until it's operating and you can actually check something out. Also, you might think there's going to be a pool, and then there ends up not being a pool, and now you've signed up and it becomes very messy. Okay. And this is, I think it's important, if we've got time, for people to know. So we have to give 6 months notice. Even one of the comments on that social media post was that my contract ended and they carried on charging me. Well, that's legal. Even if you sign up for 2 years and at the end of 24 months, you don't just walk away without doing anything. It will roll over to month, just like a cell phone contract, unless you proactively cancel. And then you must cancel in month 23 if you want to stop paying after the 24th month. So that's what our obligation is. But the legislators who came up with the Consumer Protection Act realized that, it's quite an onus on a consumer to remember 2 years down the line or 3 years down the line or whatever the case may be, that what the requirement was in the contract, if you were even aware, then. So between 40 and 80 days, and we talk about this mostly in relation to cell phone contracts, Pippa, but it applies here. It's the same legislation, fixed term contracts. The company, so in this case the gyms, must between 40 and 80 business days, that's quite a long time, before the contract actually ends, they must write to you and say, you signed the contract, whatever, it ends on this date. These are your options. If you don't cancel, it will go over under a month-to-month basis. If the subscription fee is going to go up, they need to say what it's going to go up to, because often, like with cell phone companies, it will shoot up because they're trying to incentivize, trying to lock you into another contract to keep your premium, your subscription down. And if you've forgotten that you needed to cancel and now they carried on debiting you, if you can prove that they didn't actually contact you, and the Act says it must be a contactable form, so there has to be an email or a recorded phone call in which they fulfill their CPA obligations and let you know your contract's coming to an end. These are your options. If these are the new contracts. This is what will happen if you don't contact us. It'll roll over. These are whatever. If they haven't done that, then I would say you would be very much entitled to say, I will have a refund of those subscription fees after the 24th month or whenever the contract.
Because you never did your due diligence.
You
of notifying
didn't keep
me.
your end of the bargain. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So, I mean, firstly, get into the habit, if you do sign a contract somewhere, whether you have, like me, an old-fashioned filofax or a note thing on your phone or whatever it may be.
Back of the diary.
In the back of the diary, make a note that somewhere you have diarised that on X date minus a month, you need to proactively check on the renewal status
cell phone,
of that contract.
gym, security, those are the big three.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Terry bemoaning the cost, saying in the UK, the average gym only costs about £16 per month. So what's that, 350 Rand? Gosh, here it's over 1,000 Rand unless you belong to Discovery. He wishes they could offer pensioner rates and better short-term contract rates here in South Africa. And then I love this. This is great all-round advice. And Dale, it's lovely to hear you contacting us from Pringle Bay, which is a surprise. But Dale writes to say, my dad always gave sound advice regarding deals and offers. Number one, if it's got to be now, it's got to be no. And number two,
Absolutely.
if it is too good to be true, it probably is. Both of those should be carved in stone and a copy given to everybody when they turn 18. Dale, thanks. I love that. If it's got to be now, it's got to be no. You've said so often,
High
Wendy,
pressure sales,
the
yes.
minute there is that urgency involved, take a deep breath and take a step back away from it.
Because also the effect of that is it suspends much rational thought. The urgency, it robs us of that cold clinical
analysis,
ability to weigh up the pros and cons, to do a bit of homework, to maybe check what the going prices are with the competitor, all those sensible things that we all know about. But as soon as there's that urgency, and the fraudsters use it too, but to very good effect.
Yeah. So if somebody is saying you've got to respond within the next half an hour, it's a sure red flag. Just walk away from the conversation. We've got a voice note on the subject of the gym memberships.
I'm an avid CapeTalk listener when I get a chance. Jean here. With regard to the talk that you're having at the moment with Wendy Knowler and gym contracts, I signed a gym contract, a number of decades ago in Johannesburg, and I hardly used it, much to my dismay. So when the contract was over, I thought, well, okay, thank goodness that's over. And then they wanted to sue me for not continuing with my payments for the new contract. So I said, well, I never signed a new contract. And they said, well, it automatically reinstates as a contract unless you give us advance warning before the end of your contract that you no longer wish to continue with your gym membership. So I don't know if that is still the case. So when I did challenge them, they said, well, it's in the small print. And let's face it, I mean, it's pages of small print, so one doesn't. And hidden in the tiny little words was that caveat. So I thought I'd just put my penny's worth in. And by the way, Pippa, you're absolutely one of my favorite talk show hosts.
Thank you.
Hostesses. And I love that you're an empath too.
Oh, thank you.
Ciao,
you just
ciao
made
for
my
now.
day. Jean, thank you very much. Day
Wendy
mate.
Knowler's slot.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much from both of us. Yeah, I mean, we don't know how long ago it was, whether that contract predated the CPA or not, Wendy.
No, it probably. I mean, we've had the CPA since 2011, so it's a good chance that it was since then. But she's right. What actually happened was she didn't become committed to a new contract. What happens is they just roll over to month. So it wasn't like she was now locked in for another 2 years. That's what happened before the CPA, by the way.
Yes.
They would auto-renew for the full period. Now it's month to month. So when you become aware of, oh, goodness, my debit orders are still going off, then from there you've got to give a month's notice, and you've still got one more because of the notice period, and then you're free. But yeah, it carries on going. It's not that you're locked into a new one, but it's just it will keep on going month to month
until you formally notify
give
to
them
cancel.
yes. And I think that's one of the biggest misunderstandings that people have with fixed term contracts, that they just end. I answer this question almost weekly, whether it's gym or cell phone. Yeah.
Wendy, very quickly before we say goodbye, I want to just say thanks to our listener Chantal, who raised this with us during the week. She wrote in about the transition to the new Woolworths loyalty program. And Chantal had been unaware that her previous beneficiaries on the old My School, My Planet card wouldn't automatically transfer to her profile on the new Woolies loyalty app. And she was very distressed to find this because she says all of those charities are at risk of not receiving their usual support because people didn't know they had to actively reload them. And I'm mentioning it because others may be in the same position of Chantal. Woolies did put it in the notification, but it was quite far down the list of changes. I went and had a look at the correspondence I received. It was there, but it was quite far down. And you know what people are like. They don't always read the whole email. Won't you just quickly, I know you've had some engagement.
I had some informal engagement, but I think since you've raised it.
Yeah.
The answer is the causes on my difference are not dissimilar to how beneficiaries on my school worked. Each time a shopper spends at Woolies, a portion goes to their chosen cause. With the introduction of my difference, customers need to reselect their chosen beneficiaries or choose new ones. One of the beneficiaries who was in a panic, thinking it was going to expire at the end of this month, and come the end of July, they wouldn't get any of the My Difference money, which they rely on. Well, he says they've misunderstood the time frame. Customers have 30 days to choose a beneficiary. The end date is not the 30th of July, which is today, from when they sign up to My Difference. But this is being re-looked at, and customers will definitely have until around October. It's only natural that a beneficiary would drive urgency, but in reality, Woolies will give, of course, all NGOs and customers a fair chance to ensure that their beneficiaries are set up. And then they've said that there are some FAQs on their website that spell this out.
Full confession, I hadn't noticed it either, Chantal. And so thank you for your email, because I went back and looked, and sure enough, there was a note saying you need to proactively re-register your beneficiaries on the new system. I then tried to do that. It was very easy. It's a no-brainer, walk you through a step-by-step process in the loyalty section on the app. So provided you've got decent signal, for some reason, Wendy, you cannot load that app in this building, for example.
That is weird.
And I've had some engagement with them last week. We were perfectly able to get it working in my home, outside the workplace, but in this building, that app will not load. So I can't talk you through it while we're on air because I can't look at it myself for that reason. But if you had a beneficiary on your My School, My Difference card, you need to actively go and reload them on the new profile, on the new loyalty program.
But today is not the deadline.
You've got plenty of
You're
time.
not going to leave your beneficiary high and dry, and beneficiaries mustn't worry about that. I mean, the last thing they want is that would be massive.
Can you imagine the negative publicity if all those NGOs were left in high and dry?
The cutoff in reality is more like October, but obviously the sooner the better.
Okay, so please do it, and do it sooner than later, but it needs to be done by you actively. It has not transferred across automatically as part of that process onto the new system. And that is where we must leave it. Wendy, as always, thank you so much for your help on behalf of our listeners. Please go home and have that conversation with your teenagers approaching the age of 18. And please join us again next week. And remember, if you want to send a new case to Wendy, consumer@knowler.co.za is the email address. But by far the simplest thing to do is go onto her website, wendyknowler.co.za, and use the contact form there.